Thank you very much. Is that... thank you. So first, an apology. I was told never to apologise at the start of a speech, but you'll realise I'm speaking in English and not French or Dutch or German or anything else. I can do it in Welsh, but you probably won't get too much out of that. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me to talk about the transformational journey that the BBC's been on over the last few years. And I wanted to start by just rolling back to the start of the programme, and Tony Hall, the new Director General of the BBC, he came on board and says, you know, we're supposed to serve every single member of the UK, 60-odd million people. And we do a reasonable job every week. 97% of the UK watches a programme, listens to a radio show, goes on to one of our apps or to our online products and services. But we know nothing about them, or we knew nothing about them. Everybody got exactly the same experience, everybody got exactly the same product. It didn't matter whether they were young or old, male, female, whatever, everybody got exactly the same. We treated the world as if broadcast was the only way to deliver our products and services and to deliver our content. And of course, our competitors already have a very deep relationship through subscription, through advertising, or from some other model. And we were living in a world where we just weren't paying any attention to that. In fact, at the start of the program, one of the very first things that we did, we said, we have to change the policy that we've got, which is, we were very proud at the time of saying, we'll delete the cookies, we'll know nothing about you every week. And even though we'd powered up some services using an identity, things like you could create a recipe binder and capture recipes off the TV program and create your own electronic recipe book, every week we threw people out of that and said, please sign back in. Now, not surprisingly, our customers are saying, this is mad. In a world of Netflix, in a world of every other service, this isn't really good enough. And so the myBBC program was born. And myBBC was set up to transform the relationship we have with our customers. We didn't have a language of customers at the time. We talked about users or viewers or listeners. We didn't really talk about customers. We didn't talk about them as having an experience of the totality of the BBC. We had people that are talking about, they come to my show, or they come to my channel, or they come to my program. But what we didn't say is they came to the BBC and they experienced the BBC. Now, we put ourselves in the shoes of our customers, and of course, they might be listening to Radio 4 in the morning, they might be going online, they might be looking at the weather app as they travel to work, they're almost definitely watching the TV later on at night. And so their experience of the BBC is, all of these things are great, but I'm just an individual who gets all of these things, so can you not treat me somewhat better than we did? So we set out to do three things. In that transformation of the journey, transformation of the relationship with the users, we've realised increasingly as we've gone through that this is a transformation of the way that the BBC thinks about its audiences. And we set out and said, that's all very good, Tony, transform the relationship with the BBC, but I can't run a programme, I don't know what that means. We need to break it down into something more substantial, something we can get our arms around. And in the world where you can, through online products, have a two-way relationship, you at least know who's on the other end of an app, or on the end of a web property, or on the end of a digital TV service. We'll start there. And we said, we'll transform our online portfolio. We'll look at every single one of our products and services, iPlayer, news, sport, weather, and we'll make them more personally relevant for individuals. And I'll come and show you what I mean by that in a second. But that's where we'll start, because that understanding of our customers from the online, we can then bleed into the rest of our understanding of them across all of our other services. The second thing we'd said is, our marketing at that time, apologies for the marketeers in this room and for my colleagues in London, but our marketing at the time was, we had these brilliant TV programs and we'd clip them up and we'd put a voiceover or put some music over, and we'd say that was marketing. I mean, that wasn't marketing at all. That was just kind of promoting a thing, using the thing itself. There was no real element of trying to understand what people might want or how they might experience something. And our online channels, or rather our on-air channels, were the only means in which we were communicating with them. And by communicating, I mean broadcasting, because that's just another mechanism for broadcast. So there was no dialogue, there was no direct marketing, there was no two-way communication, and we needed to feel that we could give our audiences a voice in the way that they communicated with us. and that we'd listen and respond to it. So the second thing was to introduce effective direct marketing, but it went far wider than that. It actually was to have a two-way conversation with our customers. And then the third thing was to say, well, in this world where we're starting to understand our customers a lot more, and we're starting to understand the things that they like and their passions and their behaviors, could we then use that information to start to support things like scheduling, commissioning, and other decisions that are typically not previously being looked at in that way? So could we use the data that we were collecting, and could we use that data then to start to make informed decisions? This was very definitely the hardest, and in terms of kind of order of sequencing, we've kind of gone down it in the way that it's laid out there. But we are very definitely now using the data that we collect to make commissioning and scheduling decisions, and I'll come on to that again at the end. So the first thing, we had about a year and a half of the program where people say, so when's it launching? And I kept saying, well, myBBC is not a thing. It's just the way that we respond to our customers. It kind of peppers everything we do. It's a set of tools. It's a set of tools for our editorial stuff, but it's also a set of tools for our audiences. So myBBC isn't a thing. So I have to. It's kind of my stock slide, which just says, if you're expecting to see a thing called myBBC, it doesn't exist, and it will never exist. It permeates every single thing that we do with our customers now, in terms of the way that they experience us. But there's no one thing that myBBC is. Instead, it's a series of what we've built is a kind of a platform that brings together a number of things. And I should say that when the program was commissioned, when the myBBC program was commissioned, we saw it as a joint venture between our digital teams and our marketing and audiences teams. That's effectively what we've been doing. We've been bringing marketing and audiences and digital together. And we look at 4 different layers in what our platform does. At the bottom layer, it's kind of all of the data. It's the data about what is being consumed. It's all of that information, all of the activity that we're seeing on our online products and in our marketing. Second thing is identity. And this is really, for me, this is the heart of everything we do. You cannot possibly, in a world of people owning multiple devices and accessing channels and services and content in multiple ways, deliver a personalized service thinking you can just get away with using cookies and that's it. You need an identity. You need to know who the person is that you're serving, and you need to therefore to be able to respond to that and make sure that you learn from all of those things and respond in a way. So identity for me is like the backbone of everything that we've done. We could do nothing off this if we didn't have identity. And the data that we have, all of the data that we've got, is accessible via that identity. I know about what I've watched, what I've played, what I've read, what I've listened to, what I've shared, what I've commented, what I've voted on. That's the data about the individual. And then as you go up, we kind of flip this. This is now, how do we provide that better access to content for our users? How do we give them the best possible experience? And we realize that we're in an incredibly fortunate position in one way. We have 6 national TV stations, 58 national and local radio stations, 1,500 pages of website that are getting updated every day, whether it's news or sports or online content. There is no way on earth that somebody can find their way around that without these things. And previously we've used things like stations and channels. People go to BBC One. People go to Radio 4 at 7 in the morning to listen to the Today programme. That's the way they've accessed our content. Increasingly, though, we need to make content that we think people will be excited by, interested in, entertained, informed by, make that available to them in as many ways as possible. And that's what our discovery layer does. And then the final thing is, increasingly, we have got participatory experiences. And I'll show you one of those later on, a very simple one. But people do want to get engaged with the content more and more. So in a kind of abstract way, that's the way that we think about what we've been doing. I say we've built this platform. It has a number of components. The way that we went about doing it, rather than building everything ourselves, we've said, what exists in the market, can we get that, and then integrate that to build a platform of capability. So we have ForgeRock is our identity provider. In direct marketing and advertising, we use Salesforce. Everything's cloud-based. Everything's either AWS or software as a service. We have notifications by Process One. We have recommendation services that are millions of recommendation engines out in the world. I wouldn't recommend anybody building their own one. And Silicon Valley and others are spending huge amounts of money working out what the best algorithm is. You don't need to do it yourselves. Let them do it for us. And on and on and on. We use ComScore for web analytics. We use Tableau for visualization. We use Hadoop and R and a whole part of other stuff for our data analytics, etc. So I'm not going to bore you with the detail of it, but this is just to say we've integrated all these things. These things all come together. We are now actually commercializing this through a third party because we feel that what we've built others may want. So let's talk about now what does the consumer or the customer experience. Everybody know who the chap is there? David Attenborough. He does these nature programs. They're quite popular. He's kind of been the voice of the BBC and then the face of the BBC for a long time. And what we wanted to do was, I don't know how many people go into places where you sign in and register, and it is just the dullest, most boring transactional activity, which is really dull. We said we wanted to make sure that this was a bit easier for people to understand and a bit more of our personality and voice and the way that we are. And we thought, very simply, let's put our talent in front of it. So here's David, who says, register with the BBC. Why don't you? That's not his actual email address, if anybody's taking it, just in case. Does anybody know who this is? I asked this in the UK, and almost nobody knows who this is. This is a lady called A. She's a voice on Radio 1 Extra, kind of urban youth. If you come in to sign in via the Radio 1 Extra website, you get her face. We've got 22 different talent representing depending on where you come from. We're making it context sensitive. We're making it feel as much about you and how you are as we possibly can. Making it, hopefully, a little more engaging than you would otherwise have. This is what we do to register. It's very simple. You got an email address, you got a password. We put a postcode. We put a postcode because there are things that we're doing that are reliant on providing services to everybody, and we want to be able to capture it so that we know that we are genuinely serving everybody. And then the last thing is we've got a little right at the bottom there. What do you want personalized newsletters? Yes or no? You have to make an active decision to say, yes, I do. You have to make an active decision to say, no, I don't. We've got 42% of people say yes. We've now got a database of 1.8 million people who on a weekly basis get a newsletter. Our average click-through rate's about 62%. The industry average is about 16%. These are massively targeted emails based on who you are. They get better over time because we understand more about what you do over time. We didn't just bring out a new identity platform. We know that we need to educate people more about some of the challenges of data collection on the web, particularly on the web. So we brought out at the same time as we relaunched our identity platform, what we call About the BBC, which we bring our cookie policies, our data privacy protection policies, what we do about your data, where to complain if you've got issues. And again, we've made that as easy as possible for people to navigate it. I won't bore you with it. You can't really see that very well anyway. But we make a promise about what we're doing with your data. We will not sell your data. We don't need to. We're in the incredibly fortunate position of taxing every household at the moment. If you want a TV and you want to watch the BBC, you pay your license fee. Everything's good. We will not sell your data. It's a very, very positive position that we're in, and what it's allowed us to do is to get over the hurdle that some people might have, and I think genuinely it's a smaller minority rather than a small vocal minority rather than the majority, a silent majority. We've found even in the 3 years of the program to date that the expectations of people just to sign in. When we go out and do the audience research, it says, do you mind signing in? If you got this kind of thing, are you happy doing it? People say, why are you asking us? Are you mad? Stop wasting your money. Can you just get on and do it? 3 years ago when we started, it was a bit more, I'm not sure I want you having our data. Now it's kind of a cost of entry for most people. I said there's a little bit more about what you're doing with my data. So what is it powering up? Why are we doing this? What do we give people? So I'll give you a couple of examples here. On our sports site, on our website, you can get alerts, right? Notifications. You can get match alerts, so you can say, I support Man United or Brentford Football Club. I support the England cricket team. I support a whole range of sports and teams. You can get goal alerts, halftime scores, final scores, etc. The single biggest thing on sport has been the lineup for the football matches. So we send up the lineup 10 minutes beforehand, and we get an overload of traffic, people coming, because they want to know who the team is, because they're either watching the game in the pub with the mates, or they're at the game. But we're first to tell them what the lineup is. The converse of that is, or rather, the extension to that is everything that we've done is we built it in a simple way, for one example. So we did football first, then we did rugby union, rugby league, then we did tennis, then we did the Olympics and the Paralympics. So you could choose for every country, gold, silver, and bronze alerts. Or you could just say, I want all the alerts for who wins all the cycling. So we keep extending the way in which we can do it. So the sports, we are delivering literally tens of millions of those alerts a day, and a week. And for when England play cricket, for instance, every time there's a wicket, they tend to go quite quickly, sadly. But that's what we do. On the news site, we did a similar thing, which is we know we need to deliver the news that everybody expects. Everybody expects to be able to know what's happening in the world. And you get your news, you get the kind of the BBC's news. We also provide a My News section. In the same way as we do My Sport, which is just your sports, we do My News, which is about things that are of interest to you. We have 64,000 different news topics that you can follow. I follow cybersecurity. I can guarantee 3 years ago when I signed up for that, there were no news stories about cybersecurity. Thanks to Yahoo and Ashley Madison and a whole part of other companies and TalkTalk, and I'm sure there's ones in your area, there are more stories that kind of bubble to the top. They're in those top 10 stories that will get national recognition. More often than not, they don't, though. But it's of interest to me, so I can see what the main news is, but I can also see those topics that are of interest to me. And again, this has proven to be hugely popular with our audiences. Our third example there is Iplayer. On Iplayer, when we started, Iplayer is available now on 10,000 different devices. Most people watch Iplayer on multiple devices, even in the same day, even in the same house. I've got Iplayer on Sky, I've got it on my Blu-ray, I've got it on my iPad, I've got it on my phone, I've got it on my PC, and that's in one room. And most people have, or rather we're experiencing on average around 6.2 devices per person. So people are coming at these products, which is why you need a single identity. With iPlayer, you can start watching a program on one, watch on another. You can start watching on an iPad, or start watching on an iPhone on the way into work, or an Android device on the way to work. You watch it on the TV when you get home, and you pick up exactly where you left off. Okay, that's not that big. It was a big deal for us because not only could we unlock that, but we realized that if you lock things into a single device like your mobile, when you get home, all of the favorites that you say, here's my favorite programs, it was locked on the device, and you'd have to create another favorite list on a different device. So we've simplified all of that experience, and again, now we've got just a very, very seamless experience across all of our devices, where that information goes into our single customer view. And we're then able to use that. We know what your identity is on whatever the device that you've come to, is we're able to then play back that experience. I talked about content discovery and how important content discovery was for us. So at the top there's personalized recommendations. When we started, nobody was convinced we should be doing personalized recommendations. Don't worry, the editorial team know best. The editorial team will make the recommendations and everybody gets the same recommendations, which is fine, except when you're serving 60 million people. There is no way that those 5 choices that you can set out on that little strip of personalized recommendations can be good enough for all 60 million people. They'll work for some, but they won't work for all. We proved that by putting this first on the home page. So we put our iPlayer recommendations on the home page, proved through the data that it was a factor of 10 better than non-personalized recommendations, and then put it onto iPlayer. It is now on the front page of iPlayer, personalized recommendations. Dieter was, I think, was just talking about the filter bubble and worried about the filter bubble. We also worry about the filter bubble. We have this thing where we play off kind of editorial curation, marketing, promotion, and personalized recommendations. And in everything we do, we are constantly trading those things so that we don't get the filter bubble effect. So even in that strip of personalized recommendations, which is recommendations specifically for me, at least one of those items will be a serendipitous choice, if you like, something that you wouldn't naturally get. So we can dial up how much serendipity we put in there, or we can dial it down, or we can dial up marketing preferences. So the personalized recommendations, although they're based on me and my experience, we can also overlay editorial or marketing choices as well. We've got the same thing in our online service. So in the personalized notifications there, you probably can't see, there's a little blue dot next to a little bell. That tells you got notifications. So you can follow artists, you can follow programs, you can follow a whole range of things. If your program is now available in Iplayer, it leaves a message. Leaves a message, there's a message available for you. I follow Adele, and the day we launched this, Adele was in a Radio 1 live lounge, or a Radio 1. I'm not target audience for Radio 1. I don't know what your equivalent is, but if I was 16 to 21 maybe, which I'm just slightly the other side of now, I would be target market for Radio 1. I would never go to that, and I'd certainly never go to live lounge, which is kind of the really, it's not me, right? I'll leave it at that. But Adele was playing in the live lounge. Adele's one of my favourites. It just comes up there because it's Adele. Doesn't matter what channel or station she was on. It knows that I like Adele. So Adele's there. One click, I'm watching Adele in the live lounge. That wouldn't happen. That discovery wouldn't happen if the content's locked into channels and stations and schedules and time. So we unlock that. We unlock that by effectively customer choice. We are unlimited number of artists you can follow, an unlimited number of DJs you can follow, an unlimited number of musical genres you can follow, and we can surface that wherever we want. So not just as we have there on notifications, but in our marketing as well, in personalized newsletters. The last one here is we don't just use the identity for our public service products and services. We also link it to our BBC Worldwide products and services. So BBC Store is a commercial download proposition rather. 7,000 to 10,000 hours of content available for you to purchase after the rights windows have expired. It's available for you to watch in Iplayer. It's exactly the same identity because as far as the BBC is concerned, you are an individual and your individual services get powered by the platform in the same way. We've also launched some personalised only applications. A music one, you say what genres you like and what channels and what stations, etc. You get a music experience. It's doing personalised notifications, personalised content discovery. Maybe a little bit more filter bubbly in there, I think, in reality. Bite size is our learning application. Previously, depending on where you lived in the country, you would sit a different set of exams, and you'd have maybe 80 or 100 subjects: maths, English, French, Spanish, German, whatever. And they were every time you went to try and find something, you'd have to navigate your way through it. Now you can just say, I'm studying maths, I'm studying English, I'm studying history. Just give me the content that's relevant to me, and you get effectively a content proposition which is entirely based around you sitting your GCSEs, which are kind of aged 15 or 16 exams. The bite-sized product is used by 90-odd% of school children. So being able to make this a simple experience is a massive benefit for us. We also launched something called BBC Plus, which is, if you imagine a homepage of the BBC brings the best of the BBC to everybody, the BBC Plus app is a similar version. You can choose 60 different curated topics that you want to follow. I was brought up in Wales, so I'm interested in Welsh content. I live in London. My postcode's from London. If we try to interpret me and say, give him London-based content, that's great, except I'm actually interested in Wales and other places as well. So we just let people choose that. We don't use postcode as the driver for everything. We then use the same information that we're collecting to power different marketing and engagement experiences. So here we started off with personalized email. We now do pre-roll. We can do personalized adverts effectively, or marketing or trailers for our programs within Iplayer, based on what we know of your content likes. We can do the same on the web. So when you've got that's a kind of a discovery bar, explore the BBC, and it's tailored to you. And we can do the same on mobile push. So many, many, many more ways than we had previously to do that. We've also done, as I say, these segmented and personalized emails. So we used to say, our channels and brands were the ways that our channels and stations were the ways in which we could understand our audiences. We know that audience behavior doesn't necessarily correlate directly with our channels. All right, we absolutely know that. People who watch EastEnders, actually, there's a huge EastEnders, probably a bad example. Anybody know what EastEnders is? Yeah, most depressing soap in the world. All right. For some people, they love it. Some people don't love it. But in terms of reach of EastEnders, that hits more youth audience than any other of our brands, services, channels, whatever else. Better than BBC Three, better than Radio 1. It delivers more audiences. So if we only thought that our youth audience were on our youth channels, we have a problem because we're not satisfying them. So we try and use segmentation and personalized emails based on behavior rather than age, sex, what channel or station you're on. And that's proving massively effective. I said 60-odd%. For some of these, it's even more than that in terms of open rates and click-through rates. This is one of those engagement experiences I talked to you about before. We launched a sports predictor. We marketed it, we put it online, and then we support it every week. We're kind of this holy grail. This has been hugely popular for us. We also have Strictly Come Dancing. I don't know whether you have Dancing with the Stars or something equivalent here on a Saturday night. Our voting goes absolutely nuts. So we've got the two hosts. They have this big thing, and then at something like 8 o'clock at night, they say, vote now, the phone lines are open. And what they mean by the phone lines are open are actually on lines open to take your votes. And it's like a denial of service attack that we do. We tell the whole country, can they ping our website all at the same time? And that's what they do. So within a 5-minute window, we have the equivalent of a self-inflicted denial of service attack that we have to deal with as we have this massive spike of traffic. But it's great. People vote. We know they vote. So even though they were watching the show on TV, which is what they are typically doing because it's a live TV output, we know that they are a Strictly fan. They're voting. We kind of know who they're voting for, but we don't capture that. We just know that they are a regular voter. So these kind of engagement experiences then go back into how do we market back to our customers, etc. So just to say we're using this now in the way that we do our segmentation and predictive analytics. So we capture what websites you're on. There's 20 different ways in which we can understand what you're watching. Do you just go onto BBC Sport every week? Do you want to news? Are you a mobile user or a tablet user? And then which I think over there is with iPlayer, we've got 12 primary genres. So drama is one of those 12 genres. But within drama, you've then got legal, soap, sci-fi, crime, classical. So we can get really, really, really quite granular about the types of things that you're interested in. And then when we do our personalized marketing, we can say, can we send out something to sci-fi lovers, i.e. somebody who's watched sci-fi in the last 2 weeks, who's not been on the sport website and goes onto their mobile before 9 o'clock in the morning. So massively targeted, personalized campaigns. And actually, that's proven to be significantly successful for us. So this is kind of the ways of the future. And we're using the same data. We're tracking about 1.5 billion, we call them events. So somebody plays somebody watches something, somebody favorites, somebody loves, somebody likes, whatever. 1.5 billion events a day. And we're using that now in some of our commissioning decisions and some of our scheduling decisions. I thought I'd just finish very briefly. I'm not sure if I've run over time, but sorry if I have. I put here, the technology is easy. It's not, but it is. It's relatively easy. Computers are pretty dumb things. They have an input and they have an output, and as long as you do your technology right, the technology genuinely is easy. The data bit is harder. Things like the European directives, the new European directives make it really difficult to be clear with the customers what it is that we're doing with their data and make sure that they are in control at all times. So the data is a much harder proposition, and we've worked extraordinarily hard on it, but it is taking up a disproportionate amount of our time. But the third thing is the stakeholders. And the stakeholders for us were very definitely the hardest thing that we had to deal with, because everybody wanted to know when it was launching. And actually, we've probably done 400 launches. We call them releases. And we do one every 2 weeks. And we just add new functionality as we go. And we built the platform through a series of 2-week release cycles. And when everybody says, has it released? This is, well, there's 64 different ways now that you can personalize your experience. We've got 1.5 billion transactions. What do you mean by launch? There is no launch. It's just happens. It just happened. But our stakeholders have definitely come on a journey with us as to what they can and should be doing and how they might think of it. In marketing and audiences terms, our marketing department has transformed completely. We're not just in the trails business anymore. Our analytics department is transformed completely because we're putting data in the hands of our editorial teams to make real-time decisions about what appears, where, and when. And it's now changing the way that our content and schedulers think about how they commission and do their jobs on a daily basis. It's just the start of the journey for us, I think. We've got so much more we can now see now that we've got the platform in place. And our challenge, if you like, is one of demand is now outstripping our supply. We've got such a lot of things that people want to do. It says, could you do such and such? Yeah, we could. And then my last thought, we've at all times thought of our audiences first. Bit trite, but customers come to the BBC. They might watch a program or listen to a channel or do whatever, but they come to the BBC. And so everything we've done has been centered around that, which meant that when we started to think about data, it made life very, very easy. We can only have one identity platform for BBC Worldwide and BBC because our consumers only want to come to the BBC once. They only want one relationship with the BBC. But that's made, in turn, makes it a little hard. Second thing is, think of it as a platform. These things need to be joined. Otherwise, you're going to get silos all over everywhere. And the last one was communicate both with our audiences and with our stakeholders. Thank you very much.